Alright, today we're going to do timing belt and water pump replacement on this 2004 Acura TL. I have another video here on YouTube last time that did that Civic right there. So that was an inline 4. This time the engine on this TL is a J32A3, which is a Honda V6 engine, VTEC equipped single overhead cam. 3.2 liter. So it's going to be similar to other Hondas and Acuras that have this J series engine. So here we go. First step is we're going to jack it up, and then we're going to set it up on jack stands up front and wheel chocks on the back. Okay, before we start, actually let's go over some of the stuff we're going to need. So you're going to need 2 breaker bars, 1/2-inch drive preferably. And this is to break the crank pulley bolt loose, and you're going to need this special tool which holds the crank pulley in place while you turn the bolt. So it's built by Power Built. It's a 50mm. You're going to need these extensions, and these are steel, designed for impact tools. The reason I bought these is because I want minimal extension as I'm turning to break the bolt loose, and you'll see what I'm talking about later. You'll need a socket set with the bolt. The crank pulley bolt is going to be 19mm, so you're going to need that to break it loose. And make sure you use a heavy-duty one as well, because that might break if you don't. And I have this serpentine belt removal tool I got on loan from AutoZone, as well as a torque wrench that's rated for let's see there, 25 to 250 foot-pounds, 1/2-inch drive. Reason is you need 180 foot-pounds to do the bolt on the crank pulley. Then I got a wrench set, and then you're gonna need some small socket wrenches to get the timing belt cover off of there. And then just a general tool set, of course safety goggles, wear that. This O-ring is for the oil dipstick tube that I'm going to pull out. That's the part number for it. So I'm going to pull it out, and you'll see an O-ring on the bottom of it, and you want to replace that. This is the crank pulley bolt that I was talking about. I'm going to go ahead and install a new one. Here's the part number for it. I highly recommend installing a new one. It's 16 bucks, so it's not bad. You'll need some whiteout to help you out on the timing marks on your timing belt. And here are the parts that I bought. I bought all this in one kit from Rock Auto. They include the timing belt, which is by Mitsubishi, the idler pulley by Koyo, water pump by, let's see, Ison, then the auto tensioner. It's basically a hydraulic piston thing, also by Ison. Okay, don't pull that pin. Keep that pin in there until you install it, and then you pull it out, because it's going to push against this thing and apply tension on your belt. This is the tensioner pulley, also by Koyo. So all this came as a kit for about 200 plus bucks. Alright, anyway, here we go. Okay, so the car is sitting on jack stands up front, wheel chocks in the back there, and the next thing you got to do is take this splash guard off of there by undoing all these little fasteners. I think there's some 10mm up front. Yeah, there's some bolts up front, but anyway, no big deal. Your crank pulley bolt is right behind this thing. So, and what I plan to do is actually, it's a Friday afternoon right now, so my plan is to take that off of there, and I'm going to spray on this WD-40 on the bolt to loosen it up, because you can expect that bolt to be extremely tight right now. So I'm gonna spray that and leave it on for actually overnight. So the real work will start tomorrow morning actually, And if you're going to do this yourself, you know, try to set aside a whole weekend to do it and get started early, because I have to get this done by Sunday, so I got to make sure I can do everything tomorrow. And one other thing you're going to need that I forgot to mention is you're going to need another extra jack stand, and then you're going to need a really long pipe, steel pipe, like 6 feet long preferably. I don't have that yet. I'm going to go get it, and I'll show you the setup once I'm ready to break that bolt loose. So anyway, okay, splash guard is off. No big deal. All of them are those little clips, and there's two 10mm bolts. So now the crank pulley is exposed, and there's the bolt. So I'm going to go ahead and spray WD-40 on it, and I'm just going to wait until tomorrow morning to continue. So, alright. Okay, before we get the crank pulley bolt, let's get the serpentine belt first. So this is the tool that's from AutoZone, and it's attached with a 14mm socket. Yeah, you just push it that way, and then you can get the belt off. Push it. Okay. Okay, before you go any further, take the negative off the battery here. The manual says to do that just in case, because you are turning the crank down there. So, okay, so here's my setup for breaking this crank pulley bolt loose. There's my 5-foot cheater bar. Then I got it pivoting about this jack stand. You can see in there, it's grabbing the 19mm bolt, and then my tool is sitting in there. You can see I've kind of taped it in place to make sure it stays in place, and I've got another breaker bar attached to it, and I've kind of jammed it here on the control arm. So here we go. I'm gonna try to break it loose. Okay, got it loose. It took some muscle. It's gonna make a really loud bang, and it pretty much popped this tool out of there, but it was after the bolt was already loose. One tip: fold your side view mirror in just so you don't take it out as you're hanging on the end of the bar. Yeah, this is the most important step. If you can't do this, you won't be able to proceed with the timing belt replacement. So anyway, I'm glad I got that out of the way. One thing I found was my engine mount's busted right here, so I'm gonna go get a new one, because you will have to take this mount off of there. Some other things that you're gonna need is you're gonna need some wood, because I'm gonna use this wood right here, because you're gonna use your floor jack to support the engine underneath the oil pan when you're undoing these mounts right here. Okay, now let's proceed taking this mount off, and then we'll have to get the power steering stuff out of the way. You may have to undo some lines, I think, so just make sure you have some power steering fluid handy, and then we're gonna start taking apart the timing belt covers, front, rear, and then there's one on the bottom. Okay, got the power steering pump out of the way. There's 2 bolts holding it on, one on the back and one underneath it. It's kind of hard to get to. I use this thing. For the one underneath, use a small ratchet. I want to try to get it completely out of the way, so I'm undoing this line right here, and I'm going to pull it off. I expect some fluid to come out of there, so I got these rags set up. So anyway, once I get it off, I'm going to just keep it out of the way and pull that line back. Alright. Okay, so the power steering line, I just unplugged this one and just kind of stuffed it with a paper towel. And then this one also, I put a paper towel over it, over the pump, and put it out of the way. Yeah, don't worry too much about it. You know, the fluid, some fluid came out, but it wasn't too bad. So anyway, that's out of the way. So next step is actually I want to show you that put some wood underneath the oil pan. Okay, floor jack. Now I'm gonna take these 3 bolts off of there. Take this mount off. Okay, I got the engine mount out, and I pulled the bad mount off of there. Wanted to show you what it looked like. So you can see it's yeah, it's busted. So good thing the Acura dealership was open this morning. So pick this guy up. Just note that there's an arrow pointing forward. So that's how it's installed. So anyway, another reason why you want to start early on a weekend. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this block off of here. There's a couple of bolts. Looks like that's holding it on. I'm going to try to get that off. Okay, I'm having a little trouble getting this guy off because I can't grab a hold of the bottom bolt. But I think what I'm going to do first is take the covers off, and you'll notice this tensioner is in the way of one bolt down here. So I'm going to take the tensioner off, and the way you do that is, I think, is there's that bolt in the middle of the screen on the pulley that's on the second pulley here from the top. Undo that bolt, 14mm. Then you go down here. Looks like there's another bolt down there in the middle of the screen. So I'm going to try to undo that one, see if it comes off. And space is limited here, so I'm going to use this serpentine belt tool to break them all loose. Okay, got it out so I can get to that bottom bolt now. Here's what it looks like. So you have to take the bottom bolt off, and then you have to deal with this really long middle bolt that takes forever to get out. I had to use, like I said, this thing. Just had to keep turning it until it came loose. Then you kind of fish it out through the top here. You have to get the reservoir out of the way, just pull it out. Alright. Okay, got the upper timing covers removed. Forward one, there's 5 bolts. Rear one, 5 bolts as well. 4 around the perimeter and 1 right here and right here. So let me show you what it looks like now. Okay, uppers are exposed. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the crank bolt down there clockwise, because I want to line up number 1 here. Here's number 1. Okay, I want to line it with that timing mark right there. So I'm going to rotate it around. And then the back one, there's a groove as well. You'll see a notch right there. That should line up with the top notch. That means top dead center for piston number 1. And then there should be a timing mark down there as well, which we'll take a look at later. Okay. Okay. So you look here, I've turned it until number 1, and the notch that's on the number 1 is lined up with the top notch up here. And then on the back sprocket, you'll see the top dead center timing mark is also lined up with the mark that's on the engine block. See it there? Okay. So you can see, let's see here. Oh, not on the bottom. Okay. The way you turn it was you just grab this setup that you had before when you broke it loose and just turn it clockwise. I know we broke it loose before, but it's not going to be hard to break it loose again. So that's how you do it. Okay, here's what I was going to show you earlier. If you look down there on the crank pulley, there's 4 grooves. There's 1 and then there's 3 that's close together. The 1 should line up with like an arrow on the lower timing belt cover. It's not really clear, but it's there. That's another indicator of top dead center. So next what we're going to do is I'm going to take that bolt off, and I'm going to slide the crank pulley off of there, and watch out for a Woodruff key, and make sure you don't lose that. Okay, the bolt and the harmonic balancer is out of there. There was this gold washer piece. Watch out for that and make sure the orientation stays the same. The key didn't want to come out. It's still there. I'm going to just leave it there and just watch for it. So I'm going to start undoing all the bolts for the lower cover and take it off. Okay. Okay, lower cover is off. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay, there you go, 7 bolts. And that mark I was telling you about that shows the top dead center, it's It's this thing right here, this arrow. Okay, let me show you what it points to. On your crank pulley, let's see if we can find it here. There's 3 marks. Okay, right here. See the 3? There's 3 right here. And there's 1 right here. Okay, this one is what should line up with that arrow, top dead center. Okay. Okay, so now we're back to trying to remove this thing, and we definitely have to. Why? Because if you go down here, let's take a look at some of the components. Your crank gear or sprocket, your idler pulley, we're going to replace that. Your tensioner pulley, we're going to replace that as well. Next to it is that piston looking thing, it's your auto tensioner, we're going to replace that too. Problem with that thing is your water pump is right behind it, so we need to get that bolt loose, and I'm going to figure out how, and I'll let you know. Okay, I think I got it now. There's actually 3 bolts. There was one here, there's one hidden right here, it's right underneath here. I didn't see it, I just kind of felt around and noticed it. So, and then the one on the bottom, here's how I got to it. Here's my tool. A longer one would help. Mine, I had to turn it pretty hard. But anyway, the head of this thing fits just nicely in there between the frame and the bolt. So that's how I grabbed it. See it there. Okay. All right, I'm gonna pull it off. Okay, just a quick pointer. Once you break that loose, use something like this. Otherwise, you keep turning that ratchet, you'll get stuck down there. This frame is in the way, so you can't get the bolts out because they're so long, but undo all 3 bolts and then you can slide out this thing, I think. So, alright. Okay, we got that crazy side mount off of there. Here it is. It's a big block, basically. 3 bolts. 3 long bolts. There's a lot of grease around all of them, so watch out for that. There's 1 bolt up there to hold on like a electrical bracket. No big deal. Comes out pretty easily, and now we have access to everything. You got the water pump right there in the middle. And take that off. You got the yeah, like we mentioned before, the 2 pulleys, and then the auto tensioner back there that we're gonna replace. Anyway, my next step is I'm gonna make some marks like I did when I did my Civic. I'm gonna mark the old belt next on each side of the tooth on each sprocket. The tooth that has the groove on it for top dead center, and then I'm going to go down there and make some marks, mark the rotation, and so I can transfer all my marks to my new belt. And then I think next what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to pull the, I'm going to actually come down here. I'm going to pull the tensioner off so I can get the belt off of there. How I'm going to do that, I'm going to undo, there's 2 bolts, top and bottom. I'm going to undo I'm going to loosen both, and then I'm going to take the bottom one off of there so it can swing out of the way, and then loosen the belt, basically loosen this pulley, and then the belt should be able to slide off of there. And then I'm going to pull the water pump out, but before that I'm going to drain my coolant. So pop off this cap, go down here, take this valve off, and then your coolant will drain out. Catch your coolant, and then take the water pump off. That's what I'm going to do. Alright. Okay, I wanted to show you the marks that I made with the silver Sharpie. I marked the rotation on the forward gear with a mark on each side of the tooth that has the notch on it. I did the same thing on the back. And then on the crank gear, I did something like this, where I have a mark that goes straight underneath the key, and that's my lowest point basically. And then I made some couple of reference marks on each side. I think that should be it. I think I feel comfortable about taking the belt off of there now, and then transferring the marks over to my new belt, and then draining the coolant and then pulling the water pump. Alright. Okay, here's the auto tensioner that I just pulled out. Like I was saying, loosen both bolts and then you pull this bottom one out, and it'll basically push this thing out, swing it out of the way, and then loosen your belt. It's you can see this. See how that pulley's back there has lost the pressure that it had from that auto tensioner, so your belt's loose now, so you can pull it out. And you know, you'll read some, even the manual says use the battery tie down, you know, this guy. Basically pull this out and then you're supposed to screw it back here. There's a bracket, you can feel the bracket here. It's right here. Okay, there's a bracket you screw in from the back to push this pulley against the auto tensioner so that you can pull the belt out. But it's really not necessary if you do it just the way I was explaining. And then I'm going to put in a new tensioner, right? If you go look at the tensioner, the new one that we have, that has that pin in there. So when you put it in, just don't pull that pin, you'll be okay. Alright, just wanted to show you the old belt. It doesn't look too bad, but you know, it's always good to replace these at the recommended intervals. But it all depends on your driving conditions and how you drive. So, okay, I'm going to transfer these marks over to my new belt. Alright. Okay, similar to what I did for my Civic, transfer the marks over from the old belt. There's the old one. The inside one is the new one. So I transferred them over, except this time I used whiteout on the new belt rather than the Sharpie. I don't know, just because I'm paranoid, I guess, but no big deal. The Civic used Sharpie, and it's put on like 15,000 miles since the timing belt replacement. Anyway, so yeah, I got my marks transferred over. The 3 on the crank gear, and then the two marks on the back, on the top back camshaft. Alright, so next is water pump. Alright, I took the top cap off and I turned the bottom valve, and it's draining right now. So while that's draining, I'm going to go in here, take off my forward idler pulley, and then I'm going to take off this back adjuster pulley. Alright. Okay, those two pulleys are out of there. That was pretty easy. So coolant has stopped draining as well, so I'm going to pull off the water pump now. Just from past experience, I know that when I pull that off of there, there's going to be a bunch of coolant that's going to want to come out. So I laid down a rag down there just to minimize the other areas from getting too wet. So anyway, here we go. Well, so much for the rag. A bunch of coolant still came out. Just a pointer here. It was kind of fused on there pretty good, so I couldn't get it off just with my hands. It wasn't as easy as the Civic, so I had to use a rubber mallet. I kind of knocked around the perimeter of the water pump. Still wouldn't come off, so I finally came down here. I actually used the end of this mallet to kind of wedge it in there on the underside of the water pump and just pried it away from the engine block, and a bunch of coolant spilled out right away, so watch out for that. Another note here is that, remember at the start of the video I had bought an O-ring to replace the dipstick that I thought was going to be here, but I guess they made an improvement. I think that was old TL, because the dipstick is here now, so it's behind all this stuff. I think they figured out that when you undo the water pump, a bunch of coolant wants to come down, and you don't want that going into your oil pan. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna pull it out now. All right. Next, I'm gonna clean up the surface where the seal, where the water pump seal would sit, and wipe that off a little bit. Just wanted to make a note here. I believe this car, I bought it when it was when it had 70,000 miles on it. I believe it's never been changed. Still the original water pump, Honda Ison. So you can see the parts that I bought from Rock Auto are all OEM parts. It had the Ison water pump, and then these guys too are the Koyo pulleys. This one doesn't have the label on it, but I think it's also icy, just like the water pump. So anyway, I feel pretty good about that. So next I'm gonna clean that up, put the new water pump on, bolt it on, and then refill my coolant, and then I'm gonna put the timing belt on. Alright, I'm getting ready to put the new pulleys on. Did notice that these bolts that came off, some of them were kind of tight, and they had a bunch of rust or something on the threads, or some kind of compound on them. But I'm gonna put this on all the threads and torque them down to spec. Alright, I'm gonna put the 2 pulleys on, and then I'm gonna put the belt on. Oh yeah, forgot to mention that we need to get the setup going again for this bolt. The torque on it is 181 foot-pounds, so I'm gonna get the setup going the other direction to torque that down. Yeah, I think that's it. Don't forget to reconnect your battery, and then recycle your coolant, and just yeah, that's it. Alright. Okay, just wanted to mention some torques for the water pump. They're all 10 millimeters. All the 10 millimeter bolts are, the manual says 8.7 foot-pounds, so I just rounded them to 9. This guy here for the forward pulley is 33 foot-pounds. It's a bigger bolt. The one on the back, you need to transfer the sleeve from the old one, slide it into the new one, and the bolt for it, you notice the threads are a little smaller. This one gets 19 foot-pounds. Okay, very important. Now the belt is on there. Make sure your marks are where they should be. That one's right. And make sure your belt wraps around completely inside of the grooves and everything. There's grooves and stuff here, so make sure you're in the grooves and whatnot, and your belt wraps around completely, filling in all the teeth, and are not like skipping any teeth. Okay, my marks back here, they line up with the spot that they're with the groove right there. Okay, my mark down here lines up. Okay, very important. So, because if you get this step wrong, your engine's toast. Now the only thing left is to put the auto tensioner piston in there, because I got this pulley that's just pivoting freely right now, waiting for that piston to push it. So that's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to pull the pin and let it apply the tension on the belt. And what I'll do is I'll install the lower cover, and then put the harmonic balancer back on, and then I'm going to turn it by hand a few times just to make sure my marks still hold and nothing's messed up. Okay, so here's a little trick. Install that auto tensioner, the new auto tensioner, before you install this thing, because you'll have a little bit of a problem getting the belt on if you don't, I think. So anyway, the belt's on again. I took it off because I wasn't quite happy with how it lined up with the forward cam gear right here, but now you can see everything's centered up. And I double checked and triple checked to make sure I'm not jumping any teeth, and I think I'm okay now. So now I'm going to put this guy back in, and just make sure that your tensioner is going to push up against this guy right here, and then I'm going to torque this thing down, and I'm going to pull the pin to tension up the timing belt. Alright, another little bit of a trick here. When you try to pull the pin out, okay, the pin goes through, let me show you on this guy. Okay, the pin goes through one side of the cylinder, then it goes through the actual piston part, and then it goes through the other side. Once you pull it out, once it gets out of one side, this piston wants to come out right away, so it bent my little pin there, and it got stuck, and I had a hell of a time trying to pull it out. What I ended up having to do was I did take one of the tie downs from the battery. Okay, I went back here. You can see my tie down hanging there in the middle of the screen, because there's a bracket behind this pulley here that you thread it into, and then it pushes back against the pivoting pulley back there. So it pushes back. It pushed back enough that I was able to wiggle out this pin, but you'll have a little bit of a hard time turning that rod, but what you want to do is you grab a socket. 19 millimeters should catch the end of that rod, and you'll be able to turn it little by little, and then be able to push that back. So anyway, be careful with this when you pull your pin out. Alright. Okay, so I put the battery tie down back on the battery, and you can see now that the piston on the auto tensioner is pushing up against the adjuster pulley, and you can see the tension on the belt now is applied. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lower cover back on, so I can turn the crankshaft a few times just to make sure everything's okay. All right. Okay, I went ahead of myself. Actually, you got to put this piece back on, because your lower cover actually rides on this and attaches to one bolt down here. So anyway, put that on first, and then the lower cover. Block is back in, and the torque on them are 33 foot-pounds. Before you put your crank pulley back on, put the serpentine belt tensioner on first. Otherwise, I think it might be in the way. I don't know. All right. Anyway, we're gonna do that. Okay. Before we put this on, just want to emphasize we kind of have to clean up a little bit. Clean up the surface that goes on the inside, and then wipe off the surface that's outside here where your bolt's going to sit on. Remember, we sprayed a bunch of WD-40 and wanted to get it loose, so make sure you wipe all that down. Your bolt, this is a new bolt. Make sure this surface is clean. Wipe that down. Put some NICs along the threads here, and then when I got it, there was already a lot of oil on this, on the top side of this washer, if you will. So I'm going to leave that on there. So anyway, I'm going to do that and then put it on. Okay, it's back on, and being the paranoid person that I am, I took the my breaker bar and extension, turned the crank a few times, made sure the belt was still lined up, and it looks pretty good. And it's still right centered in the forward cam gear, and the back has a groove on it, so that's okay. But feels pretty good. So I think this is it. I'm gonna close up the top two covers, put my engine mount back on, torque those guys down, and fill my coolant. What else? I think that's it. Put my splash guard back on, and reconnect my power steering, top it off, and I'll let you guys know how it starts up. Alright, I goofed up a little bit. I shouldn't have put that tensioner on just yet, because the tensioner was, if you remember, it was in the way of this top cover, right? So I forgot that, so I put that on. Now I'm going to have to take it back off to get the forward cover on there. But, you know, it doesn't interfere with your crank pulley like I was suspecting, so it's not a big deal. But I'm going to take it off of there for now. And I also discovered that the top pulley on it, the bearing was kind of tight, I noticed, so I took it off, and I think the bearing shot. I mean, I might leave it on for a little bit until I can get a new bearing, but anyway, something to note there. Let me just clarify as well that when I said recycle the coolant, I meant send it to a recycling center, not reuse it, because I did buy new coolant that I'm going to put in this car. Alright, so I'm going to take that off, put the top cover on first, and then put the tensioner back on. Just wanted to mention, quick note, if you were working on this pulley up here, the thread on it is reverse. So I actually got it off by turning it clockwise, because you turn it counterclockwise to push against the spring that's in the auto tensioner. So anyway, just a note on that. It's reverse thread. Alright, I actually wasn't satisfied with putting this old idler pulley back on because of how the bearing felt. It is running at your alternator and whatnot, so I didn't want this locking up. It doesn't feel too bad, but it is kind of tight. So I went to AutoZone and got one. 20 bucks. No big deal. Anyway, I'm going to put that on. And yeah, we're going to put the engine mount back on after that. So okay, the new one's on. It feels a lot better. So it's just as smooth as the one below it. So yeah, I feel good that I got that swapped out. These are known to lock up, so if it feels like it's tight, I would swap them out. So, you know, when you're doing this, always have another car handy. You probably need to go run, get some special tools and parts and whatnot. So. Okay, new mount is on. So you can release the jack now on the bottom, but these were torqued to 40. This is 47, and the bottom one that attaches to the mount, you may not have to do that, but I wasn't sure what the torque was. I couldn't find one, so I torqued it down to 55 foot-pounds. Okay. Oh yeah, don't forget your little grounding strap. You may tuck it away here, so make sure you pull it out and put the 10mm bolt on there. Next thing we're going to do is put the power steering back in and hook it up. Okay, serpentine belt is back on. It's pretty easy. Next thing to do is torque this guy down. Okay, just wanted to show you guys real quick the setup to torque it to 181. Yeah, similar way like we did for breaking it loose, except I got it all pointed the other way now, so I'm using the floor for this for the second breaker bar this time. Alright, I started her up. Everything runs just fine, and we're just getting the air out of the coolant now, so we'll let that sit for a while. That's pretty much it. So I'm going to put the engine covers back on, and yeah, just clean up. So, alright guys, just last note. When you first start it up, after you do all the work, you'll smell a little bit of burning. Don't worry too much about it. That's that coolant, all that coolant that spilled when you pulled the water pump, right? I mean, all that was in the compartment of the timing belt. I mean, I dried it up as much as I could, so I did, you know, wait it out to let it dry and whatnot, but it still smelled a little bit of burning, but it was only for a few minutes, so don't get too alarmed by that. So I think that's it, man. So, you know, I did it myself, and it cost me about $300 plus bucks, and if I was to send it to a shop, it would be about $1,000. So anyway, if you were to do it yourself now, don't be too scared to do it. As long as you got the right tools, you'll be okay. But if you were going to send it to a shop, at least you know what it takes now to do it. Anyway, alright, good luck.